Resonance FM 104.4.
Good evening. You're listening to Resonance FM in central London and across the world on the internet. Tonight's Clear Spot, starting slightly late at 7:03. My name's Ian Greaves, and this is Justin Lewis.
Hello, I'm Justin Lewis, and this is We'll Always Have the Paris, 90-minute show of comedy clips and chat, and our guest tonight is Nick Symons. Hello, Nick.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for coming along, and we're going to be playing some clips from your past and from your recent past actually as well. And we'll kick off with this one from last year, Mr. Harry Hill.
Hey, remember when they allowed calculators in the maths exam?
Oh, the excitement. I can't believe it. Calculators in the maths exam. I can't believe my luck.
What do you mean we've got to show the working out? They give with one hand, they take with the others, don't they? I asked my mum for the Casio PF100.
Oh, yeah, it's a lovely calculator.
The Casio PF100. Unfortunately, my mum bought me the Casio PF200, which, as you may know, is an electronic organ.
God. What are you going to have to get me that one for?
So you can imagine me, there I am, in the maths exam. Huh? I've bought it, I've got to use it, haven't I? It's the multi-choice, right? It's all important. It's a third of the marks. There we are. Question 1. Question 2. Question 3. Oh.
Oh. More paper. More paper. More paper. Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
Harry Hill from the all-new Harry Hill show, transmitted last year. Fantastic. Nick Symons, our guest tonight. Oh no, We'll Always Have the Paris. You produced that series and TV Burp as well, which is about to start its full series.
Yes,
right?
we're back. We're back in October. 23rd of October is the first transmission.
And Harry's got a lot of extracurricular stuff on at the moment, hasn't he? I mean, he's taken over You've Been Framed. Is it just...
He's taken over You've Been Framed, but not in vision. You just hear the voice of Harry Hill.
Right.
The clips, there's no studio anymore. There's no studio audience anymore. I should say I've got nothing to do with that show. Although I have seen one, because I don't believe they've gone out yet, but I have seen
Starts Saturday, I believe, yeah.
And it is he's done a fantastic job on it. I mean, it's refreshed that show.
Yeah.
And there's given it a new lease of life.
You saw the TV Burp special he did up in Edinburgh recently. What was the nature of that? I mean, anyone who's seen the show knows that it's very clip heavy and
that was the Edinburgh TV Festival invited him to go up there and do a live version of TV Burp for the Edinburgh TV Festival, like the comedy event at the Edinburgh TV Festival. And so we trooped up there last couple of weekends ago, and we did basically a bit like, I imagine for the audience, it was a bit like going along to the studio audience and seeing it being made as a programme, because Harry was sat on the stage and we had a big screen behind him, and he linked the clips, and we were round the back playing them in.
Wow.
I think it went all right, yes.
And the one last thing is, I believe there's an audience with Harry Hill.
An audience with Harry Hill, yes. This is, I'm really, really pleased about this, because an audience with is what ITV now call a brand. It's an ITV brand, an audience with.
30 or 40 shows down the line now.
Yeah, it's got to be that many, hasn't it? But there hasn't been one for a few years. They kind of rested it. And Harry's the first one back, and I think that's a real marker for what ITV are trying to do and succeeding in doing with their comedy and entertainment, because what they're saying there is that they're putting Harry up as, right, this is what we're like now.
Yeah.
This is the best, not necessarily the best example, but this is the example of what we consider to be the front line of our comedy performers. It's Harry Hill, it's an audience with, it's a format you know, it's a comedian some of you may not be that familiar with. Spend an hour with him, listen and watch, his best stuff. Make that your intro to him. It's going out. It's been really well scheduled. It goes out the Saturday before we start the new series of TV Burke.
And is that a prime time slot?
That is 9 o'clock on Saturday
9
night,
o'clock,
16th of
brilliant.
October, ITV1. And so we go out a week before ourselves, if you see what I mean, which gives us a really good springboard into the new series.
And it's virtually unheard of these days for comedy to actually access the peak time slot of 8 till 10, isn't it?
Yeah,
So that's
is.
quite an honour in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, I'm absolutely delighted that he's doing an audience with. I mean, he himself has been. They've been after him to do it for quite a long time. It just hasn't worked out. But it was just so perfect to be able to do it the week before the new series goes. And in fact, he's appearing on Parkinson the week before that.
Oh, right,
so he's on the
right.
Parkinson. So the whole thing has really been rather well kind of managed
well-oiled
by
machine.
ITV. Yeah.
It's quite interesting actually that it's not just with an audience with. I mean, it's not just they haven't done any at all for a few years, but they certainly haven't done a comedian for some time, have they? It's been musical
No,
stars
you're right.
in
Because the
recent
last
times.
one they did was Brian Connolly. You see, so
Oh, really? It was
Right.
the last comedian they did.
I know they had Shirley Bassey on and people like that.
Tom
didn't they?
Jones.
Tom Jones, Kylie,
Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart.
It's interesting what we're saying about ITV's treatment of comedy at the moment, that this doesn't necessarily reflect in the papers, because I think the last 2 years ITV have pretty much, let's be generous, swept the boards at Montreux, the comedy
Yes.
festival, the awards.
Yes, that's true.
But the critics don't really know how to respond to this, I think.
No, I think they're still locked in I think they're still in a bit of a time warp about ITV comedy. I think they still can't quite believe. It's a bit like it's a bit like your auntie suddenly says something really funny and contemporary at a wedding that you're at, and you think, wait a minute, how does she know about? She's not supposed to know about that stuff, and she's not supposed to be funny either. What's going on? And they can't quite. It doesn't quite compute, with a lot of. Some of them they do. Some of them get it. Ali Ross has got it in The Sun.
Yeah.
He's great. He's terrific. He's equally disparaging about ITV programs that he doesn't like as he is to praise ITV programs that he does like. But he understands that time's moving on all the time, and a channel's got to refresh itself all the time.
But
you
when-
cannot.
Sorry, I was only going to say finish. Go on. Sorry.
No. I mean, I'm sounding like an apologist for ITV. We're talking about it because Harry Hill was brought over to ITV from Channel 4, and I think a lot of people who didn't really know Harry very well took from that Harry Hill was somehow a bit alternative and difficult and left field and kind of a bit of an acquired taste. Whereas my theory has always been, ever since I very first saw him, which was a long time ago now, 10 years ago pretty much, is that he's basically a mainstream act.
Well, the Fruit Corner shows for Radio 4 are always clearly, just from the fact that he had quite sort of traditional mainstream people working with him on that. They'd have sort of Jim Whitfield as a guest star one week or somebody like that.
Don't forget that that the Channel 4 Harry Hill shows were produced by Robin Nash,
Oh, that's right. Yes,
who was head of comedy at the BBC in the
Yeah,
70s.
that's right.
I mean, you've been speaking of the mainstream and sort of working at ITV. I mean, you've kind of worked there since you entered comedy, pretty much, haven't you? Kind of had some kind of toe and.
Yeah, in mainstream, unfashionably, yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I think it was unfashionable in the 90s.
Well,
I remember
where's-
when I got the job at Carlton. When I first got the job at Carlton, there was a lot of, what do you want to go?
Well,
and work for this week?"
you were there at day one in Carlton.
Not quite.
But I mean, Dave Allen, I would hazard a guess, was probably the only
That was
success they had in the first
It
year.
was the first comedy show that Carlton ever put out on ITV, and in fact, I'd made that before I joined Carlton.
Right.
Right.
It was Noel Gay.
It was Noel Gay Production,
Right.
that's right, and I was working for them at that time, and in fact that's how I got to know the people at Carlton. But the point is that when people discovered that I was going to go and work for Carlton, there was a lot. I mean, this is a little bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like saying, right, I've decided to buy a Volvo estate. Right, everyone, I'm getting a second-hand Sierra. It was like people couldn't believe. Whereas I felt that was where the best opportunity was. Because if you could come to a channel that was a bit sclerotic in terms of its comedy and bring in some of these new people, it's taken a long time, but bring in some of these new people, there's much more potential in a channel like that than there is in, say, trying to duke it out on Channel 4 with Cheers and then later Friends and now whoever.
We would love to have brought in a Dave Allen clip. It's unfortunately my copies of that series are many miles away, but I mean, it's his last series, wasn't it? And
it was.
Sort of effectively 2.5 hours of great stand-up by him. But what we have got from your Carlton days, shall we say, is a clip from pilot you made in 1996, but actually goes back quite some time. It's called The Preventers, and we'll hear a short clip from it now.
No, no, no. I said a drinks cabinet shaped like a globe. Ah, The Preventers. Craig Sturdy, Penelope Gold, and the third one.
Mike Stallion.
That's right. Stallion by name, stallion by nature, eh?
Well, not so you'd noticed lately, to be honest.
Now, as you know, we believe a sinister consortium, known only as the Consortium, plans to take over all the television broadcasting in this country.
So, who exactly is in this consortium known only as the Consortium, Controller?
Known only as the Controller of the Controller.
We don't know. Our best guess is that it consists of media barons from around the world, and is masterminded by this man.
Roger Stavro-Mordick, the Australian newspaper and TV tycoon.
Ah, just as I thought.
What did you think, Penny?
That would be telling.
That's rather enigmatic.
I'm an enigmatic woman.
Uh-huh.
Or am I?
Now this is Sir Norman Quimby. Until last night, Minister for Television.
What happened last night?
He drove his car over a cliff at the quarry.
I see. And were there any suspicious circumstances?
He drove his car over a cliff at the quarry.
Twice in one night. That is suspicious.
We believe this could be the work of the Consortium.
Makes sense. They assassinate the minister.
Get one of their own men into the ministry in his place.
And get one of their own men into the ministry in his place. You said that, didn't you?
Precisely. Now your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to investigate, find out what's going on, and prevent it.
Leave it to us, Controller.
Goodbye, the Preventers. And goodbye.
Oh, wonderful to hear that. William Gaunt there, guesting in a very special spoof of the ITC series. Not just your Saints and the Champions in particular, but Jerry Anderson and the whole breadth.
Searing satire there. And
Absolutely.
where is Sky now, you see? Did its job, didn't it?
Well, so, hearing that clip again, now I know that it originated on stage and you had involvement back then, and it also was on the radio, and it must be, was it a decade later it actually made it to television as a
exactly
pilot?
10 years, yeah.
I think two questions. Was that kind of material that you were doing back then, and why didn't it get a series?
I think that what made it successful as a stage show was that because it was spoofing television, the things that we did in the stage version were pleased the audience because they were happening in a theatre. Mm-hmm. What made it difficult for people who we pitched it to in television was how were we going to do any more than just do a kind of like a long sketch with it, because all of the kind of big moments that were on the stage were to do with the fact that we'd done an impression of television but on the stage. Mm-hmm. And it was really only by Chris Robin Wenner who wrote it. It was only really when they started to build up the characters that it started to have a television life, because otherwise there was some accuracy and they weren't wrong at some levels about that. It was like a long sketch if you put it on the television. On the stage, it was a pleasing kind of romp with some some fantastic jokes in it. Brilliant jokes. The first time I ever heard the Café Olé joke, which is now everywhere. There's a cafe, it's called Café Olé, but you know, what's that, Spanish coffee? You know, just I think that's the reason, because I think a lot of television people couldn't really understand how it was going to work. Then what they put their backs into was building up the characters, so there were actually three-dimensional character relationships between the three preventers, and I think that made it plausible, you know, work as a television experience.
Exactly, it incorporated the will they won't they thing, which was kind of and have a truly dejected extra character, which was Chris England.
Chris England, yes.
Yeah. I mean, they're a great team. Sorry, just for me, you're going to say something.
I was only going to say that because to have sort of William Gaunt in there as well, who sort of.
But he was
obviously
in the Champions, yeah.
Yes, and sort of. So presumably had a set. I mean, I'm not familiar with the Champions at all as a series, but
it's exactly like that.
It's just like that, basically.
The drinks cabinet shaped as a globe. Certainly,
it was. It was set in the head office of where the Champions had to report to was in Geneva, Switzerland, which was so glamorous for the 60s.
Huge fountain.
Yeah.
William Gaunt effectively playing, was it Tremaine?
Yes,
the name of the character. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I know Chris England and Nick Hancock and that generation all grew up with it, sort of Saturday lunch times, kind of.
Yeah, all those, as you say, all those ICC shows.
Do you think then with a show like that, because as you say, I mean, it didn't get a series.
No, it didn't.
I mean, during that time, I mean, obviously ITV experimented a lot. Carlton in particular doing things like comedy firsts, and you wrote something with Sandy Toksvig.
That's
for that,
right. Yes.
Once in a Lifetime.
That was called. Yeah, that was before I joined Carlton as well. But yes, we did. Yeah.
But there were various sort of attempts to try and put things. I mean,
I put that down to a guy called Paul Jackson, who was the managing director of Carlton at that time, and whose background was absolutely comedy and entertainment. I mean, he was a stage manager on the two Ronnies. He produced the Young Ones. He came over to ITV and produced Saturday Live. Brought Ben Elton, brought those people to ITV. And so when he got into that position of power within Carlton, one of his things was he was going to back what was going to be new comedy for ITV on the channel.
But do you think that there was a kind of a fear with the ITV network at the time? Obviously, there was a thing much said about the this big commercial company and how it would have to justify ratings and things like that. And it's always seemed to me that ITV has often been underestimated for the fact that it will take risks with new programmes. I mean, Spitting Image has got to be one of the riskiest things anybody's ever put on television.
And Badil and Skinner's series as well. It's not an obvious format to go for.
But think that, and it wasn't like those were one-offs either, because if you think about shows which perhaps aren't either so well remembered or quite so successful, but nevertheless did pretty well. What was that show that Russ Abbott did, where he was? There were two of them, Russ Abbott, and it was in the mid-90s.
Oh, September Song,
September Song.
Which was, I think, a Radio 4
September Song. And it came onto ITV, is that right? And with Russ Abbott and another actor.
Michael Williams?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, who would pick that? If you didn't know, if it's like a wine tasting, if it was a blind tasting, you can say September Song. What channel was that on? You go, that's probably Channel 4, isn't it? Or maybe BBC, but certainly not BBC One or ITV. No. Guess what? It was on ITV. So I think that appetite for from time to time taking risks with comedy and understanding that comedy is a risky business was there throughout ITV, has been there throughout ITV. So
to give us perspective on that, at the moment, in an average year, how many pilots do ITV make and how many go out?
I think they would look to make 4 pilots in a year, probably.
Right.
And they would, I think the current thinking is that pilot becomes the first one or one of the series should it go ahead. I don't think they're that into putting out pilots that they're not sure about anymore. But
the comparison sort of with the BBC is misleading, because I suppose with ITV there is such a restriction on the amount of slots that you actually have as well.
Yeah. If you think about the ITV schedule, once you take away the 6 Emmerdale slots, the 4 Coronation Street slots, the bill, the news sits there solidly every night. You've got to play some dramas at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
You've got to get those movies out. You're going to have the football. A lot of football on ITV, and it's going to come midweek. It's going to sort of mess up your schedule midweek. You've got to leave Saturday night as a big entertainment night, because when that Saturday night delivers, it really delivers. With Anton Deck, with I'm a Celebrity, Millionaire. When these shows, they really do. There's not a lot of room really for comedy, and so it does tend to get slightly, in the correct sense of the word, it does tend to get slightly marginalised.
And you also have that problem as well, and another producer at ITV4, Paul Spencer, who I know you know.
Paul Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, he said to us once about how, and I never knew this before this, but there isn't really a repeats policy on ITV.
No.
Which just makes it very, very
Very
hard.
tough.
It's not
Yeah.
popular with the advertisers, I presume.
No, I think that's right, and it makes it really, really tough for comedy, because if you look at the way that a lot of BBC comedies have come through and survived that kind of early, it's a bit like being a newborn, like one of those newborn horses that can't really quite stand up properly.
Yeah.
To survive and strengthen, what comedy often boils down to is repetition.
Yeah.
So if you've got a comedy, if something going on, if you've got a comedy which, whether it's got catchphrases that need repeating, or whether it's characters that you need to become familiar with, very, very often you'll find that people will say, oh yeah, I saw such and such a series. I didn't like it when it first started, but I thought they got better towards the end.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that's not what's happening.
Let's look at a sitcom that you had some success with at the BBC and discuss that after a clip from it, I think. This is Kiss Me Kate.
Oh, yes.
Oh, hi, Craig. Hi, Craig.
Oh, good.
So, is there a reason you've come in?
Reason?
Yeah, some purpose,
Not really, just
Okay, just checking.
purpose.
Oh, no, really, don't worry about it.
The reason why I'm here.
Oh, no, I really haven't got time for this. Okay, look, if there are any
My
messages...
parents.
Yeah. If there are any messages, can you just take...
No, my great-grandparents.
Yeah. Just take messages, because it'll give me 10 minutes to get my head together for this other thing.
Norseman. Oh, blimey.
No, actually, I am going to have to wait for this.
Pollen.
Oh, right, OK, that's it, I'm going.
So they'll have finished their dessert by about 2:15.
Right.
And then Laura, who's this year's chairperson, will only speak for about 5 minutes, because her main job is just to introduce the keynote speaker.
Oh, right, who's that going to be, then?
You.
Oh, yes, of course, me, yes, good.
And from that point on, it's really your show.
Is it?
As you know, we said 20 minutes, but if you want to overrun, then obviously that's fine, if you give me your target time beforehand.
Right.
You can tell me now, if you like.
Right, yes. I haven't actually written out a script in, words.
Really?
It's nice to leave room for spontaneity.
Yes, that's very good. It's very courageous.
Is it?
Well, I really admire people who can stand up in front of hundreds of strangers and just talk.
Hundreds?
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to. I mean, I'd just faint.
So, how many people are there going to be there in terms of the total number of people in total altogether?
Well, the room holds 500, and we're expecting it to be full.
Of people?
Yes. Do you know the Senate House?
500?
Because the conference facilities are tremendously impressive.
Oh, good.
No, because before the Big Bang, it wasn't anything. It was just nothing, just total darkness. Well, it wasn't darkness, because darkness hadn't... there wasn't anything, not even darkness. It was just nothing, as far as you could see. Well, you couldn't see because it was dark. No, it wasn't dark, so you could see then, yeah, but it's pointless to look because there's nothing going on. You're missing a cup.
Yeah, I know.
It's dribbling down the side, look.
Yeah, that's how they work.
Hi. Hi, Craig.
Hey, yeah, Douglas, what happened just before the Big Bang?
I don't know, I only just got here. What sort of a bang was it? What?
No, you started a...
Yeah, it's a moustache, yeah.
Let's have a look.
Oh,
Oh, that'll be Lisa then.
you've named your moustache.
Douglas is in love.
Well, no, I
She's a
mean...
big moustache fan, is she?
Well,
That's not very big.
I just decided it was time for a change.
Yes, exactly. It's Lisa.
Yeah, I tried to go moustache once, but it came out in the wrong place.
What?
Yeah, it sort of comes out down here, too low. I don't know why. Perhaps I'm a bit too tall.
There you go, from Kiss Me Kate there from 1998. And you're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM with Ian Greaves, myself, Justin Lewis, and our guest, Nick Symons. Nick, you produced that series and about, two therapists and their various misadventures, he says, using TV Times parlance.
Yes,
but
hilarious consequences.
But a great series, and it struck me that 3 series on the BBC, but it was made as a co-production with Carlton. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Now, we were saying just before that about how shows didn't get, might not have had very long runs on ITV or might not have been given the chance. I mean, was that show? Did that show have an advantage being on the BBC?
Yes, undoubtedly. Yeah, and in fact, what we started to touch on about people's familiarity, part of the success of a comedy having to do with familiarity, is that, and it happened with this show as well, with Kiss Me Kate. People would actually say, "Yeah, I didn't like it when it first came out, but I thought it got better towards the end of the series." And in fact, the first series was not recorded in any order at all. It was put out in the order of the ones that we thought were probably quite strong early on, and then a little bit of a dip, and then a good one at the end. So it wasn't getting better. What was happening was they were becoming more familiar with it. They tuned into all the kind of little. The comic music of it, if you like. And they became used to it, and they became able to realise that someone was being funny when they said such and such a thing, because they'd seen them behaving similarly the week before, and it was meant to be funny, and so they get, and it happens often with comedies.
With Kiss Me Kate, Caroline Quentin was obviously the selling point, and the series, in fact, ended purely because she wanted to have a child, I believe, was it?
That's right.
Otherwise, it could have carried on for a long time.
Yeah, well, they commissioned a full series, but she decided to take a year out to have a child.
Yeah,
which she did have.
And she's back very much now.
She's very much.
This weekend. So.
She's on 3 times, isn't she, this week?
I think so. Yes. But I think it's interesting with Kiss Me Kate, though, is that it's interesting that we mentioned a 4th series, because by the time it reached Thursday, I was watching the 3rd series the other day. Unfortunately, our 1st series is only available commercially, but I was watching the final series in which Bill Nighy is excellent in it as Douglas's brother in it, and of course at the end of the series, well, I probably shouldn't spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but I don't know how often it gets repeated these days, but the fact that there is actually a sort of a resolute ending to it. It sort of appears to sort of finish, and then there's a Christmas special, which I gather was just, you had a Christmas special and there was no sort of, you didn't really know what was going to happen.
Well, they said, not quite halfway through the series, but at the beginning of the series, when it was all written, they said, "Oh, can we have a Christmas special?" So suddenly we were running around trying to, and the 2 guys it's Chris Langham, you heard just there playing Douglas, and John Morton, who wrote People Like Us, which was on the radio and on the television.
And at the time of Kiss Me Kate's launch, he was new to television, wasn't he?
He was indeed. He had met Chris because Chris was the star of the radio, and then later on the television, this radio show we were just talking about called People Like Us. And I'd commissioned Chris to write a script about therapists, which was a subject in which he was interested. When I was at Carlton, and a couple of years, it kind of didn't quite work. And then a couple of years later, he came back and he said, I still haven't forgotten about that therapist idea. But here's the thought: meet this guy John Morton. He's been writing this new radio series I've been in. I think the 2 of us together could do something. So we met, and they wrote another script based on it, which was basically Kiss Me Kate. And Caroline Quentin took one look at it, and it took her 2 days to say, yes, I want to be in it.
He's bringing us towards our forthcoming clip. John Cleese guested in series 1 as well. I mean, was that kind of a group decision to get
himself?
Him in?
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of a triumph, wasn't it, to get John Cleese to come and do
any comedy show at all, really?
Any comedy show
not
at all.
Since Cheers, I don't think he'd done one, had he? Something like
Certainly not in Britain.
No. That's right.
Okay. It didn't hinder that he has the same agent as Chris Langham. It made the conversation that much easier. And it made the conversation... what made it, I think, probably the easiest of all was that John Cleese really respects Chris Langham's work.
Well, like Brian, weren't
well, he's about their age as well, isn't he? He's 60 or something now.
Chris?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he's that old.
Oh, I'd read somewhere that maybe they've got the details wrong.
He's the internet,
He
gets things wrong.
I suppose he might be 50, might be mid-50s.
He was working with Spike in 1970, 72. Yeah.
Well, we've actually got a Faulty Towers clip coming up.
Terrific.
Now, and, you very specifically wanted this clip coming up, and I wondered why you particularly wanted this one. It's it's from the Germans, but it's not a clip that people normally associate with it. Should we play the clip first and then discuss it? And then we've got some Dad's Army coming up after that as well. We'll talk about this in a minute.
Joe! Nearly 6 o'clock, for dear.
Is it?
Yes, well, when you're ready, I might have a fruit juice or
Yes,
something.
well, I'll open up the moment I've done this, Major, yes?
No immediate hurry.
Drunken old sod. Holly! Holly! Manuel! Oh. Yes, Faulty Towers, hello. I was just doing it, you stupid woman. I just put it down to come here to be reminded by you to do what I'm already doing. I mean, what is the point of reminding me to do what I'm already doing? I mean, what is the bloody point? I'm doing it, aren't I? Yes, I picked it up, yes. No, I haven't had a chance yet. I've been at it solidly ever since I got back. Yes, I will, yes. No, I haven't yet, but I will, yes. Yes, I know it is, yes. I'll try and get it cleared up. Anything else? I mean, would you like the hotel moved a bit to the left, or... Yes, right. Well, enjoy the operation, dear. Let's hope nothing goes wrong. Wish it was an ingrowing tongue. Yes! Oh, it's the Admirable Crichton. Well... you called, son? Last week, but not to worry. Okay. Oh, Buddha. Look, go and get me a hammer.
¿Cómo?
Hammer.
Hammer. Oh, a hammer sandwich.
Oh, do I have to go through this every time? Look, a hammer.
My hamster?
No, not your hamster. How can I knock a nail in with your hamster? Well, I could try. No, it doesn't matter. All right, I'll get it. You come here and tidy. You know, tidy?
Oh, tidy, see.
Yes, I get hammer and hit you on the head with it. Come on, tidy.
They're here, sir. They're here. We're on our way down to the Rock Emporium, sir.
You just happened to notice your bike outside from our bottom, sir.
Yes.
Come on, sir. There's not a minute to lose.
What are you talking about?
The church bells, sir. They've been ringing.
What? Where? I never heard them.
About 20 minutes ago. I was at home having my tea. I went straight round to collect Jones, and now we're on our way to the command post, sir.
But this is terrible. That coach will be half at Eastgate now. We've waited 6 months for this, and now when Hitler's at our throats, my platoon's at the pictures. Why aren't you there? I was coupon counting, sir.
But, Commander, what are we going to do, sir? This means there's only 3 of us left to defend the whole town.
Yes, I know, Fraser. Let me think. Don't you worry, sir. We'll fight to the last. That's what we'll do, sir. We'll fight to the last. If we run out of ammo, sir, we'll give them the old cold steel. They don't lock it up, you know, so they don't. I can't help it, sir. If I get the smell of battle in my nostrils, it just gets me going, sir.
Put that away before you hurt somebody. It's going to be a bit of a job, sir, defending the beach with only 3 men.
You're quite right, Fraser. We must face the facts. I don't believe that the 3 of us could actually stop them from landing. But we must change our plans. The commander in the field must always be flexible. Yes. We must make a snap decision. Yes, sir. Well, don't take too long, sir. They'll be here in a minute. Now, let's cross over to the key position. 3 determined men could hold an army there. Deny the enemy his axis of attack. If we can hold out for long enough there, it'll give our regular troops time to regroup for the counterattack. You see? Mind you, probably be the end of us, but we're ready for that, aren't we, men?
Of course.
Good show. Now, I think we better take this machine gun with us.
I'll carry this.
Right.
I'll take this.
Grab a magazine, both of you.
I don't have any time for reading, sir.
The Godfrey's got it, and the double.
Oh, sir. Right.
Oh, it's lovely. It's great to find...
You make that noise, don't you, after Dad's Army clip?
Yeah.
No, you have been listening to Dad's Army, the Battle of Godfrey's Cottage from 1969, quite an early one, which is they're actually finally getting their act together at the BBC and putting out what survives of the first 2 series later in the year. And before that was Faulty Towers, the Germans, where we forgot to point out that Moose's head was involved in the action, but I'm sure many of you have seen it 1,000 times. I mean, 2 great sitcoms, obviously, but why did you pick them? Do you think entirely for that reason? Or?
Yeah, certainly for that reason, and because they are absolutely part of me becoming a fan of comedy. You know, some things of that. I think they're fantastically high quality. 2 very different shows. You know, one is a show which is led by one person's voice. It wasn't a star vehicle for him particularly, although that's what it is. That's the shape that it's got. And with him writing the other one, a team show with lots of different characters, lots of different catchphrases. If you didn't like that guy, you like this next guy. If you think that one's a bit stupid, this one over here makes you laugh. Two completely different approaches to comedy, And but nevertheless, I think both of them seminal, really, in terms of.
Yeah,
British.
I mean, you make that analysis tonight, but I mean, did it actually get you interested in kind of how comedy is structured, how a sitcom is structured? Was that what was going through your mind in your youth?
No, I think the things that it was easier to get hold of structurally were the sketch shows like the Dave Allen and the Two Ronnies and Python.
Yeah,
obviously was. For people of my generation who were interested in comedy, that was the thing that when you went to school the next day, that was the thing you tried to rebuild the sketch you'd seen the night before with your friends.
Yeah.
You say, no, he didn't say that. Then he says this, and you didn't particularly go into school and try and rebuild an episode of Dad's Army or even 40.
But it's a totally different world now, isn't it? Because I know many people, kind of your generation, shall we say, who all talk of memorising things in the playground, where there's this kind of group knowledge. One may have photographic memory, and you're lucky in that case, but between you, actually keeping this memory alive for years often. Yes, and it's because there was so little television around. Don't forget then, we're talking then, when Dad's Army first came out, 2 channels, and when Fawlty Towers first went out on BBC. Is that right?
BBC Two,
isn't it? 3 channels. We can get the 4th channel until 1983. So everybody watched the same things. Well, certainly everyone of the same generation watched the same things.
And also, both those shows, what they have in common, it's like what we touched on earlier about shows that had very quiet beginnings. They're certainly not really noticed when they started. Fawlty Towers got quite lukewarm reviews.
Both famously, in fact, you're quite right, both famously shows that started off with really relatively low, in Fawlty Towers'
they are
case,
actually,
almost disastrously low viewing figures. And it was only, the pleading done by people who were actually in the comedy department of the BBC that caused those shows to stay on.
Yeah.
I mean, so you mentioning Python there, I mean, what we said about remembering things in the school ground, I mean, what kept a lot of comedy alive for your generation, I would have thought, were comedy records, the Monty Python albums that came out and so forth, which made it a lot easier, I would have thought. But I mean, tonight you've brought in one.
Yes.
Can I call it a comedy record? Is that
it's
is that the general name?
It is definitely a comedy record.
It's Peter Sellers, but do you want to set this one up for us?
Yeah, this is something that we had at home, and we were looking at it before we came on. It was originally recorded in 1958, but I think we probably bought it. Somebody at home, one of my parents bought it. Because they were big fans of the Goons and the whole, and indeed Peter Sellers, and. This would be from about 1967, and it's about a pop star who feels he's hit the skids because he hasn't had a hit for 3 weeks.
They say that I'm too old, I guess I'm coming up for 9. Me curly hair is getting thin, it's all them women and wine. But I'm oh so ashamed, it's been 3 weeks since I had a record in the top 20 pop. It hurts me when I think says out, at 8 I was top of the poll. They screamed every time I just opened me mouth and rocked in the aisles with me roll. Now I'm oh so ashamed, they all say me discs are flops, 'cause I haven't got a record in a top 20 pops. I've tried oohs and I've giggled, I've rocked it and I've skiffled, I've sung an old song and no one could make out a word. It's the truth. I've clapped me hands till the blood run, I've had echo till me head spun, till me head spun. But they say you're too old, too long in the tooth, give us you. I've had me breakdown in the papers, dyed me hair a luminous green. I wobble me hips in sexy like capers, and me sideboards meet under me chin. But I'm oh so ashamed. It's been 3 weeks since I had a record in the top 20 pops. I've held high notes real classy till me eyes went all glassy. I've sung a duet with myself, nearly ruptured me throat. I've tried humming and not drumming. I've broke 10 guitars with me strumming, but it always turns out some Charlie has done it before. What's the matter with me platters? They say I should try a new kick, but me nerves is hanging in tatters. I've done me nut till I'm fair off me wick, and I'm so ashamed. It's been 3 weeks since I had a record in the top 20 pops. Me discs are slipping. I haven't got a record in the top 20. Please buy this record. Please.
Yeah, you see, it's a joke, isn't it? Me discs are slipping.
The platter that matters.
Yeah.
Nick was singing along throughout that.
See, those ones you learn when you're 6
Absolutely.
or 7, they stay with you, don't they, forever?
Oh, so you were talking about getting interested in comedy. I mean, this...
Yeah.
And we've been looking at the sort of late... Let's move to the late 70s. And, I mean, you went to Cambridge, as some people may know, that you were involved in the Sellotapes and that kind of whole period with Fry and Laurie and Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And, others. Paul Shearer, I beg your pardon, who
Paul
you used
Shearer,
to write
yeah.
with.
Yes.
Paul Shearer, people might not know his name immediately, but he was a regular on the Fast Show, and he pops up in all sorts of things these days. But how did you get involved in that?
Well, that was because I'd always been interested in putting on shows at school and being in plays and school play, anything, any performing, and I'd started to kind of not write sketches, I suppose, but I certainly started to want to write sketches. And of course, when you go to Cambridge in late 70s, which is when I went there, and if you've been interested in Monty Python, you kind of knew that there was this Cambridge Footlights, and all these people who'd been in it, David Frost, all these Tim Brooke Taylor Goodies, the Pythons, all sorts of people who I admired as a child. And so you kind of got to give it a go. You can't, if it's there, it's been. So you go along and you see what it's all about, and then someone says, "Why don't you try writing something?" And it really grew from that.
But you were never a performer, is that right? In Footlights.
Yes, I did.
Oh, right.
I did do the every year the Footlights puts on a summer show, which plays Cambridge and then goes on a tour. And I did the tour in 1980. Yeah.
Right.
And but I knew that I wasn't. Well, I mean, I think when you've got Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, and Emma Thompson and Tony Slattery coming up behind, you kind of think, well, maybe I'm not that good. But I kind of knew that I really didn't have the thing to be a performer. I think you need to be very good at remembering your words, you need to be very good at timing, you need to be very good at acting, but you also need to have the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've got the thing to do that in front of the camera or on the stage. Not successfully. I'm perfectly capable of remembering the words in the right order and all that kind of thing. So that's what started me going behind the camera, if you like, or behind the microphone in the radio, in the radio sense, because what I could do was help people who had got the thing to do their thing as well as their potential gave them. That means helping them with the scripts, helping them with the performance, putting the right casts together, getting the right environment together for someone to do their thing the best they can.
We're going to hear in a little while. We're going to hear a clip from a show called Al Fresco. Here we are again. ITV.
And almost never mentioned on the radio or television as Al Fresco.
And you couldn't afford that cast now.
No.
if you had the whole of ITV's budget, it had Emma Thompson, Robbie Coltrane, Ben Elton, Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, Siobhan Redmond. You couldn't, you couldn't put those people together now, and that's what ITV were doing less than 20 years ago.
And the misfortune, I think Series 2 was up against Who Dares Wins, which was another big show of the period. So, I mean, it didn't really register with people. I don't think. But
people didn't believe it was going on ITV. I just don't think that people thought that ITV would be a place they could find something like that.
The thing is, as well, is that there was that kind of traditional 10 p.m. on Sunday slot where you would get, Spitting Image famously ended up there, but you'd had things like Agony and Humphrey Barclay, various comedies he was doing, but Al Fresco, there were all these things going on there, and I certainly started to tune into these things knowing that that you'd find some comedy there.
New Statesman later on, wasn't there?
That's right. But what are your sort of early memories of Al Fresco coming together? Because I gather it had been a regional show to start with.
That's right. They started off in Grenada.
There's Nothing to Worry About was its title initially.
I'd forgotten that. That's right. Yeah. And then they got, I think, only one series. Was that right, on the network?
3 shows. Sorry, two series of Al Fresco. I think 13 in all, but there we are.
Hugh Laurie said about Al Fresco many years later, he said that with the success of Not the 9 O'Clock News on BBC Two, various companies were going around trying to do their own version of it. Is that your memory of how this all started?
Cynically, I think that's what Granada wanted to do. They wanted one of their own.
Yeah.
It wasn't an early case of a Perrier winner kind of... which the Sellotapes was. A Perrier winner automatically getting a commission.
No, I think it was 2 people at Granada, Sandy Ross and a man who's going to come to me in a minute, who wanted their own, not the 9 O'Clock News.
Was it Steve Morrison?
Steve Morrison, thank you. Yeah, Morrison. It was thought that who's ran ITV for a while and now runs even more than that. And the 2 of them were just convinced that they couldn't see why ITV couldn't have one of those of their own. And yes, the Sellotapes had been this show that a lot of those people had been in, but they've also put Robbie Coltrane in there, who was at that time like a kind of an alternative. He was quite an alternative actor.
He'd done the comic strip, and
he wasn't a writer particularly, but he was an as you say. He'd been in amongst those people. Ben Elton, who at that point was sort of coming out of the shadow of Rick and Aid. Who'd been at Manchester University, and so they knew of him because he was always knocking on the door at Granada, and because he's a very ambitious guy, and that was the local TV company. And so and Siobhan Redmond, who's a fantastic comedy actress.
Absolutely, yeah. Have you seen Al Fresco in the last 20 years? When was the last time you saw them, do you think?
No, I haven't actually. No.
All right.
But now we're going to hear some.
Pleasure you with a clip. We're skipping any Fry and Laurie material because that comes later. Okay. But this is Emma Thompson and Robbie Coltrane in a sketch which you wrote, which I think we've got to one in the show now, and this is very special. It's actually from Al Fresco, although in the previous series, which we mentioned before, Paul Shearer took the role that Robbie Coltrane plays. But
right.
Both are equals, but this was the one which we had in better quality. Anyway, here it is.
Right now, I'd like to introduce to you a very, very old friend of mine. Okay, not that old. Actually, this is kind of special for me because I've known my guest tonight since we were kids. And I can remember way back when we used to live in the same neighborhood. And our fingers were always sticky from eating too much chocolate orange cake and rummaging around inside dead animals. You remember that? Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Mickey Wilson.
The sun's been so good to me. It's a song that I love. I'll sing it loud and I'll sing it clear in a satin glove.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi.
Well, it's nice to be back, Jack. And when
when you've touched the bottom like I have. It's a pleasure and a privilege to sing. And may I just say this? To all you people out there who stuck by me when things were rough, I love your faces. And I love your minds.
Oh, gee, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. And can I say, it's your show, sweetheart.
No, you're right.
I'd like to say to anyone else out there who's having a rough time, I'd like to say, remember, when you say cheers, all you're getting is booze.
Gee, Nicky.
Yeah?
That's a really, really true thing to say. Woo! Hey, since you and I are here together, why don't we do a song together?
What, do a song together?
Sure, you and me do a song together.
Hey, do it right now, you mean?
Yeah, sure, right here. Why not?
Hey, I wasn't expecting to have to sing.
Sure, let's do that. See, what are we going to sing, Nick?
Well, why don't we sing the song we rehearsed?
Okay, we're going to sing you a medley now that's a tribute to those 4 great guys that we're never going to forget. John, Paul, George, and the drummer. Okay, hit those keys, Vic. Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Sing it, Vic.
No, it looks as though they're going to hang around a while.
I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe in yesterday. Let's go.
Suddenly, oh my God, but yesterday came mighty fast. No kidding, honey. Yesterday.
Oh, this is great. I was a walrus, not 64.
She loves you, yeah, yeah. Judy, Judy, Judy.
I
believe in Norwegian
That noise again.
It'll be in your head for weeks, listeners. It was for me.
That's Al Fresco, broadcast by Granada for ITV in 1983. And Nick Symons is our guest. Talking about that particular sketch. And did you write quite a lot for Al Fresco? I mean,
not a great deal. The vast bulk of it was written by Ben and Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie.
Well, I do think that stands well. That stands well against any of the stuff in the series. I said to you off air that it's one of my favourites.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for that. You were saying, what to be proud of. I really, because I had forgotten about that, and I do remember being very pleased with the idea of that someone would have written a song of which the lyrics were, "This song's been so good to me." And because it was all about, you heard the sketch, what it was about that kind of soppy, sort of cynical sentimentality that kind of performer has, and I was really pleased with that as a kind of a concept, that you would write something that you knew would be so successful that you could tell that it was going to have been good for you, even though before you released the song.
Because you think to yourself, when would the first time have been that he'd have performed it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Now, in the sort of mid 80s, you just sort of finished sort of 2 series of Al Fresco, and you started to work for the BBC as your. I think I might say the first time you did production work was for BBC Radio in the
Radio 4. That's right. Yes.
And that was, you were based in Manchester for that.
Yeah, I was based in Manchester because of Rick Mail, Ada Edmondson, and Ben Elton, and the BBC were desperate to keep a handle on the people who were coming out of Manchester University. So I was sent up there to do exactly that, and of course anyone who had been any good at Manchester University had gone down to London the other way. So I spent quite a long time listening to the producer of the Grumbleweeds tell me how to do things. Which
must have been
remember the Grumbleweeds?
I do. And
unfortunately, I remember them rather more clearly probably than you do, because that was.
I was given some last year, and they they're a cure for insomnia. They really are.
Was this Ron McDonald? Was it?
Well, Ron and I
Craig,
shared an
was it?
office. Mike Craig.
Yeah, Mike Craig.
Mike
So
Craig,
we were trying to work out when you might have left exactly, because we came across a series called Frankie Howard's Forum, which was around the time that Cliffhanger ended.
Yes.
You're going to hear in a bit, but Cliffhanger was I think one of your great shows from that period, and Frankie Howard's Forum was produced by Ron McDonald, and that was kind of around that time.
Around that time, yes.
Was it ever possible that you might have ended up doing that? Were you kind of?
No, I don't think so. No, I think Ron was also he was a writer. Ron and that guy Mike Craig we were talking about used to write a lot of the Grumbleweeds together and other things, other radio things. When he brought that forward, Ron.
Because it's very much a sort of seems to be two things going on BBC Manchester at that time. You've got quite sort of traditional mainstream stuff. You've got Listen to Les and
Radio 2 stuff,
Roy Castle and all that sort of thing, and then you've got the Radio 4 sort of Saturday night type things. Which I mean, how did you sort of get involved with Cliffhanger? Because how did you know them?
I first saw them in Edinburgh. I think that's right. The first time I ever saw them was in Edinburgh, and they were absolutely brilliant. Stage, they were like big comedy stage shows like really no one else was doing. Maybe what Steve Frost and Mark Arden were doing later with the Wow Show was like that. But Cliffhanger, when you went into a Cliffhanger live show, it was a proper stage play, comedy play with set moving bits of trapdoors.
Was it anything like? Was it Cooped? I know the last time we met we talked about this, but that great company who make horror parodies for the stage.
Yes.
Along those
people
lines,
like us. You mean?
It's like, oh God, I can't remember their name, I'm afraid.
Well, people like us are like that now. There's a group called People Like Us, which is spelled PeopleLykus. People like us.
But the Cliffhanger team had also done Channel 4 series. They came from somewhere else, which I've never seen.
Yeah, which was based on one of their, probably their most successful stage show. Was
extremely early Channel 4, isn't it?
TVS made it, I think.
That's right. John Dale made it down at TVS, and it was. It wasn't. Again, it was that odd thing of because their influence, unlike the Preventers' influence, was television. Their influence was more filmic, again, difficult to translate to television.
Should we try to give the listeners a taste of what they were about?
Cliffhanger, is it?
You can hear.
Yeah.
This is Cliffhanger on the radio, which is on the table, which is perched on the sideboard, which is balanced on the Chesterfield, supported ultimately by the roll-top desk on top of the chaise longue. What am I doing up here with the chandelier tinkling in my ear? An experiment in vertigo? Or merely introducing this week's story in grand style?
Come down here, you naughty boy. You're damaging the furniture and I want to smack you.
Oh, she's a hard woman, but if you've been a naughty boy, you must take what's coming to you. I'm here, headmaster.
I'm not a headmaster. Bend over anyway and let me lash you with this birch twig.
It didn't hurt a bit. I'm no fakir, though. It's just an old-fashioned schoolboy defense system. I have this week's book down the back of my trousers. I take it out.
Foiled again. I'll get you one day, you naughty boy.
The Burma Notebook, Part 1.
I ordered a meat masala. This is a lobster. A black lobster. Oh, a living lobster.
It's a scorpion, Emerald.
Good God, it's as big as a dog.
Watch out, Emerald. He's going for you. Quick, Battis, the Spanish guitar.
nothing. The scorpion seems calmed by the music. And...
Good God!
He's accompanying with his pincers.
It was true. As the Gurkha strummed the guitar, the giant scorpion began to dance and play his pincers like castanets. And then, still playing, Battis made a line of salt across the table to the floor, which the scorpion followed, sniffing it into his horny black nostril all the way until he disappeared to the kitchen whence he came. Battis, you saved my life. How can I ever thank you?
Well, madam, there is one thing.
Get back to the kitchen, Battis. Miss Emerald is not for the likes of you.
Yes, sir.
And bring Miss Emerald her meat masala.
Yes, sir.
And a pint of lager.
Yes, sir.
Strange. The last 3 lady visitors we had were all attacked by scorpions before I could make a pass at them.
Attracted by the smell of white women's toilet water, no doubt. Come on, bimbo. Let's go and see the drag show in the mess. Don't want to miss the opening number.
Well, which one's that, Major?
Number 1, I think. Oh, yeah.
What is that big bundle that the Major carries everywhere, Mrs. Brine?
That's the white man's burden, dear. Try not to stare. It makes him feel rather awkward and guilty.
That again. Cliffhanger's one of the great Lost series, really.
They call Harry Hill surreal.
I mean, that for the listeners, that was from their swan song, really, in March '87, and pretty much yours as well from BBC Manchester.
Yes.
I mean, you moved on to LWT, I believe, around that time.
Yeah, but as a freelance. Yeah. I was working as a script. I wrote the script for the Michael Aspel talk show for a while, and but I've been sort of going between the BBC and TVS, doing this Saturday morning children's show called Number 73 at that time. So I was half at the BBC and half at TVS.
No, I suppose one of the series that you're. Producers are never always remembered by viewers, but I think one of your great achievements was your contribution to a bit of Fry and Laurie, which you came into on series 2, and obviously you go back a long time with Fry and Laurie. Was that the reason that you were brought onto it?
Yeah, I think so. Briefly, because I think that they wanted to have someone around them who was really in tune with what they were doing. And this is not about what had happened in the first series, but I think the first series may well have been put together quite swiftly, and they were never sure where it's going to go out, and
it has never been repeated terrestrially, and it's a shame because I think the first series is, I think, as good as 3 hours of sketches that you will ever see. Roger Aldrich, the producer for that series alone, was typically Jim Will Fix It producer, wasn't it?
That's right. Although, funnily enough, I found that only the other day, but he'd done a bit of sort of TV satire himself in the 60s, I gather.
He certainly had. He did. I think he kind of just got locked into Jim Will Fix It somehow. He's so good at it, and it was such a hit show that they couldn't bear to take him off it. Yeah. But that's right. We did the first, second series sort of together, with Roger being the BBC end and me being the kind of Fry and Laurie end.
Was it you who introduced the studio links, which of course have been absent in the previous show pretty much?
Yeah, no, I can't claim them. No, I think that was definitely something that Stephen and Hugh decided would make good junctions and good kind of, what's the right word, kind of good
easier to assemble, aren't they?
Links, exactly. They call them interstitials in America, but I mean punctuation.
Yeah.
I mean.
And you've got some interesting cameos there as well. You've got people like, you've got Paul Whitehouse in a pretty early sort of TV for him.
Nigel Havers and Paul Eddington completing jokes.
All sorts of people. But those things, and really, I kind of look out for it from time to time, and they're not quickies. Those things that Stephen and Hugh, those character pieces that they used to do in between. But they're so useful, and I don't think there's been another broken comedy show or a sketch show that's actually done that. We're not really.
I did wonder if they'd looked at tapes and not only but also, because that It was actually they would perform fictional stuff in the studio in the same suits that they would present the show.
Yeah.
So there was more of a slippage in the actual style and content of it, but it did seem to. I think that's the only example I can really call to mind that does that.
Possibly, yes. I mean, probably. No, it's such a good technique. We've got to revive that and do that again because it's.
I mean, this is Fry and Laurie are fabulous, aren't they? Sketch writers.
He's and really rigorous as well. You know, every word, every line, every exchange is kind of thought through. He had this great one. Stephen playing a cabbie. Probably a London cab driver. He's certainly got a London accent. But anyway, he's got this kind of cabbie's badge around his neck, and he looks at the camera and he says, "Yeah, I've just come back from the primary school. My little girl, she had a painting in the art show. There, all the paintings, all the pictures, all around the wall, all done by her little kiddies, all her friends. They were crap." And it's true, isn't it? What children's drawing is really any good? And it's just the speed of that is what we.
Well,
loved.
Well, we're actually going to hear a sketch which I think it's fair to say there isn't a desultory line in it. As great as that as what you described is, we are going to hear.
We were spoilt for choice, but this is from Series 2.
Yes.
I can't remember which show it was. I'm sure many listeners aren't interested, but it was from 1990. And, well, let it play for itself.
Help you, Chuck?
Well, I don't know. I don't know as if you can help me. Have you got any get-well cards?
Dozens. We've got dozens we've got.
Oh, that's all very high and dandy, but have you got one? You see, it's my daughter's 21st a week Friday.
Oh, well, you want a birthday card then, Pet?
Oh, I wish it were that simple, I do. No, it's just, well, let me explain. My wife... well, she's my second wife, you understand. My first wife drowned in a mixed salad in 1978. My second wife is a younger lady.
Like myself?
Like yourself, yes. Very like yourself. Slightly heavier beard line, though. I've got a photo somewhere.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, but it's of the Bolton Wanderers Reserves playing away at Blackburn, so it's of no use. No, my second wife, you see, she's a difficult woman, very jealous. She doesn't like to see younger ladies around. It reminds her that she's getting on herself, you see. And, as I say, it's my daughter's 21st Friday week.
So that'll be her stepdaughter?
Her stepdaughter,
yes,
that's right,
yes.
Well, you see, it'll get her all in a pother and remind her how old she's getting.
Oh, well, it's never easy being a stepmother, is it?
Well,
no.
That's right, you see. So she'll have a spasm. She'll have a jealous spasm.
A spasm?
A spasm. She'll have one of her spasms.
They can be nasty, them spasms, yes.
Well, that's right, you see. That's why I'd like a get-well card, good and ready.
Well, you know, we've got one there. It's got a nice printed message. Sorry about the varicose veins. Get well soon.
Oh, yes, it's grand, that. It's lovely, but I'm not sure as it's appropriate. Do they all have specific messages?
Well, they do nowadays, yes. It's the acid rain, I think. Now, let's see. Hold up, Chucker Pet. Oh, no, this is more like... Sorry to hear your teeth fell out in the Arndale Centre. All my love, Thomas.
My, that is specific, isn't it?
It is specific, doll. That's the charm.
I do see, but it's still not quite right. Have you got anything else?
Well, now then, how about a nice printed poem? I'm right sorry to learn you succumbed to another nasty hernia. You mustn't lift what you cannot carry. All the best, your grandson, Harry.
I'll take that on the off chance.
What off chance, Duck?
Well, on the off chance that I change my name from Fred to Harry and my grandmother comes back to life and has another nasty hernia. I mean, you never know.
Well, it's as well to make sure, isn't it? But we must have something here that meets your case, petty love. Ah, now, look, here we go. Where are your youthful years? Your stepdaughter has 'em. That's why you had such a dreadful spasm. Hope you recover very quick, your loving husband, Frederick. That's what you're after?
Oh, what a pity. Oh, what a shame. I'm Alfred, you see, not Frederick.
Oh, that is a shame, yes.
Oh, well, I'd best forget it.
Well, I'll tell you what, in that case, let's take one of these for me, then.
Oh, hello, what's this? Poor old Alfred, life is hard. You tried to buy a get well card. There wasn't one to meet your case. Ever so sorry, much love, Trace.
That's me.
Oh, bless you, Chuck.
It's the least I could do, Dovepot.
Oh, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did. We're hooting away in the studio there. That's Fry and Laurie from 1990, and you're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM on this Thursday night, and this is We'll Always Have the Paris with Ian Greaves and myself, Justin Lewis, and our guest tonight, Nick Symons, who, amongst many other things, produced the series from which that sketch came from. That's a fantastic sketch, and obviously it shows the sort of double act at its most central, I suppose. I mean, what do you think is so special about Fry and Laurie?
Oh, I think the well, we talked about their the incredible pressure that they put on themselves and each other to make it as good as they possibly can. The detail. The accents aren't particularly brilliant, but the detail of what word is used is absolutely crucial to them.
Inflection as well.
It's as much in performance as well. I noticed there's that lovely routine he does where he reads the very, very old letter that belonged to his grandfather, in which the letter writer is revealing all these homosexual crushes that he has on the man, and sort of skips over them. And at the end of the item, he's actually doing a line which in itself is funny and would be enough to carry off the sketch. And is doing this business with his hand where he's folding up the letter and twirling it in his hand, and that they make it visually interesting too, and
they were
animated.
Absolutely, like all great. I'm sure it's the same with actors, but certainly like all really great comics, comedians, funny performers. They are absolutely obsessed with the detail of it and with the look of it, and whether the shoes are the right colour, whether it should be corduroys, whether it should be brown trousers, whether it should be a jacket, no jacket, tie, no tie, cravat, what's it going to be? Absolutely to the last thing. And the other thing I think that marks them out is they are both voracious gatherers of knowledge about all sorts of things. So the range of what makes those sketches, I think, so rich is the range of not just ideas from sketch to sketch, but within the sketch you'll find an extraordinary joy. They take tremendous joy in the use of language and playing around with words and getting them back to Fry. Stephen Fry once said, I'm sure he said it far more than once, but I remember him saying, and I remember it kind of hitting home as such a fantastic, an unusual concept to come up with this type of thing that he comes up with all the time. He said, I'd sometimes try and invent a sentence that has never been uttered before.
Actually based a sketch on this.
Yeah. He did indeed. Yeah, probably he did.
Yeah.
And it, what an idea.
Yeah.
And that idea comes from being mad about language, about its range and its limitations, and about grammar, and that's what informs that idea. I think it's a most wonderful idea.
It's a very wordy sort of milieu comedy as well, which I don't think could it happen now, a sketch show like that, which actually upset. I mean, QI can certainly exist because of John Lloyd's bullishness to actually do what he wants, but
yes,
is it new generations?
I think it could. I think if you look at what say Garth Marenghi are doing, I think you've got two guys there who are so bright, unbelievably bright, depressingly bright, and they are also great users of language and style. It isn't what they do is not parody. They're doing a stylistic.
I heard it was a very intricate and long production for that series.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all about, not because of any other reason that they weren't obsessed with the detail and obsessed with the...
one of them directed it himself.
Yeah, Richard Iowadi directed it himself, and I think so. I think it is possible to do it. Yeah, I think it's about passion, having a passion for that style of comedy.
Well,
I was only going to say,
we're actually going to hear from another show now that prides itself on detail,
and is one of your passions.
Yeah, one of your passions too. From the second series of The Simpsons from 1991, and
brilliant.
This is a clip. Hard to find something that just worked on the radio, but I think this just about pulls it off from War of the Simpsons.
Oh, 3 couples, our best turnout yet. Why don't we go around the room and everyone can introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about why they're here. John, Gloria?
My name's Gloria. I'm here because Johnny Boy hasn't been able to cut it, man-wise, for some time. Not that I'd want his odor of gin and sour defeat pressed against me.
That's enough, Gloria! Thank you, Gloria. John, why don't you tell us a little about why you're here?
She never cooks. She keeps a filthy house and she talks profanely. She's the queen of the harpies.
No, I'm
Queen
not.
of the harpies.
No, I'm not.
Here's your crown, your majesty.
Get away from me,
Queen of the
you
harpies.
This is the right place. First, I want you to look into each other's eyes.
Your eyes. I've forgotten how beautiful they are.
Let's never fight again.
We were fools to argue.
Well, let's not talk about that.
Let's not talk at all.
Remember my saving your lives and bringing you happiness when we pass the collection plate next week? All right. Ned, Maud, what brings you here? Well,
Go on, Nettie.
sometimes Maud, God bless her, she underlines passages in my Bible because she can't find hers.
Oh, lucky you don't keep guns in the house.
Homer, why are you here?
Oh, because I got drunk and looked down her dress.
No, Homer. Marge is going to tell us all your faults. Why don't you tell us about hers?
Oh, she's perfect.
Come on, Homer, what are her faults?
Well, sometimes they can be annoying.
Now, Marge, don't interrupt. You'll get your turn.
I'm done.
Okay. Marge?
Well, it's not that I don't love the guy. I'm always sticking up for him. It's just that he's so self-centered.
Wait, oh!
Now, Homer.
He forgets birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, both religious and secular. He chews with his mouth open. He gambles. He hangs out at a seedy bar with bums and lowlifes.
It's true. It's all true.
Homer, don't interrupt.
Sorry.
He blows his nose on the towels and puts them back in the middle.
I only did that a couple of times.
It's the language detail there,
Isn't it?
both
Yeah.
religious and secular.
Secular,
The Simpsons, War of the Simpsons. Nick Symons, why the Simpsons?
I really wanted to have something American in. I think in the 90s, because of a lot of the shows that went out on Channel 4, like Cheers and Roseanne, and to an extent Sybil, but then more recently Friends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in British mainstream comedy became rather obsessed with America and the Americans, and the way they did it, and the whole business of team writing and the money and how much more the budgets were and all the rest of it. And so I was quite pleased, sort of not to get into that discussion again. But the reason why I wanted, I hope you would include something American, something with an American accent rather than just just the British stuff, is because at its best, American comedy is absolutely sublime, and it doesn't matter what they're doing in terms of their foreign policy, and it doesn't matter what they're doing in terms of their diet and all the things that people get at the Americans for, or their whatever it is. The level of writing, performance, and production in American comedies, whether they're television, whether they're live action, animated like this one, in the comedy, the best of their comedy movies, even the records that were made years ago by all sorts of performers in the 50s and all, are absolutely sublime.
I think with the Simpsons, it seems to me, is the sort of triumph of a little show.
Yeah.
It obviously starts off as a little show, but in the realm of
it starts off as punctuation in the Tracy Ullman show.
That's right. Yeah, which I believe got cut out when they ran them here.
They did, yes.
That's
That's
really
right.
hard to find. I mean, they actually did a special, I think, the 127th episode Spectacular or something, where they included a few of them. And they are, I mean, the animation is quite a leap from what we have now. But its progression has always been on screen. I mean, Series 1 looks peculiar now.
But it's well written. People always underrate the early ones, and I think they because it's a great sitcom. They take that idea. Graham Linehan once said they take that concept of the family, which is virtually sacred in American terms, and they basically desecrate
Subvert it completely.
Yeah.
And then the incredibly explosive things that you can do with animation. Give it that extra dimension. The one where they're having the family counselling session and they're all sat in electric chairs and they can punish each other.
Yes.
But it's just that when like when one of them punishes the other by giving them an electric shock, you know, it's the animation of the way that
Yes.
you know, it goes to a skeleton and
Yeah.
it all goes black and white, and there's all these sparks coming out of it, and then they come back and they're back. Like the best anime, like Tom and Jerry used to do, you go from a flat thing having been run over by a steamroller, and then you come back up to life.
I mean, each line demands a reaction, which is obviously the source of great writing.
But also on the subject of sort of violent acts in a cartoon, Matt Groening always said that one of the things that he liked about The Simpsons, wanted in The Simpsons, was that if characters got injured, they were shown to be injured. They were actually, there would be none of this kind of getting up again.
Instant
and
recovery,
again.
right.
There's that one where Homer falls all the way down the cliff and, you know, getting bashed and sort of, you
goes
know...
on for some time.
Ages, and of course gets into the ambulance and then, you know, knocks a tree and he falls down and goes all the way down again and covered in blood, you know. It's great.
You talk about Simpsons for absolutely hours, because there is indeed hours of it.
But here's a show that virtually never gets talked about now, it must be said. And
we were desperate to include it.
Something that you had a great deal of involvement with, a show called Number 73, which...
And before we talk about it, I must remember to thank Nick Ayling, who is the world's leading Number 73 expert, who supplied this clip. From the master, you were honoured. So this is coming from the original tape. But it's Roaming Around, which was a film series that you did. Unbelievably, Michael Kerrigan directing, who now does Casualty and Lord knows what else. But let's hear it. It's a nice clip, and we'll be back afterwards to talk about it.
Okay, here we go with episode 4 of Roaming Around. Of the gods, Babs has arrived in Rome, only to witness obsequious servant of Pompous and Crassus training the slave Julian to impersonate Julius Caesar and become the emperor. Meanwhile, the real Julius Caesar, unaware of this plot, is journeying to Rome in search of Babs, whom he loves, with her mother, Mrs. Thingamy. Will he be in time to save Babs?
What do you do here?
I help people to get what they want.
Perhaps you can help me get what I want.
Shoot.
I come in search of liberty.
Bodies?
No, justice, truth and purity. It's a matter of life and death, love and honour.
Well, as long as it's nothing important, I'll see what I can do. What about a meeting with the rulers of Rome, Pompous and Crassus?
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Is there an echo in here? I shall arrange it for this afternoon.
My mother will be so grateful.
I know. I'm a mother myself, actually. I can honestly say I have sacrificed everything for my children.
Do you want some pasta, Crassus?
I can't eat. I've got a toothache. I've got to go to the dentist.
Pasta your prime, are you, sir? Next!
Babs, I've come to see Pompous and Crassus. Noble... It's you.
Hello, somebody just come in.
I come in search of liberty and justice, truth and purity.
Oh, well, you've come to the wrong place, then.
I see that, for I know that you are the men planning to replace the real Julius Caesar with this man with the big nose and make him emperor. Take her and throw her to the lions. We shall watch you in the amphitheatre. See if you can find truth and justice against the lion. Stop! Let go of me, you beast! You villain, let go! Let go of me! She's right. Julian's nose is so big and there are statues of Caesar everywhere. Someone will notice the difference.
I've got it. If we can't make Julian look like the statues of Caesar, we've got to make the statues of Caesar look like Julian.
Yes. And as for Babs, the gods will decide.
Decisions, life, death, tea, coffee. Juno?
Yes, dear?
I've been thinking. What's this place called?
Olympus.
That's right. Why don't we have a games every 4 years with young people from all over the world competing? We could call it the Commonwealth Games.
How do I look?
Divine.
Anybody fancy a game of Monopoly?
No.
Trivial Pursuit?
No. Let's see how Caesar's getting on down at the Roman border. All we have to do is get through customs and then we'll be in Rome. I shall see my beloved Babs and have a beloved bath.
I do hope we get there before it gets dark.
Yes, we don't want to be worming in the gloaming.
Anything to declare?
War if you don't let me through.
Wildlife?
No, I've had the odd evening in a nightclub.
How odd?
If you don't let me through, I shall be forced to duff you over.
Yeah, you and whose army?
Me and my army.
How many bags has this here army of yours got then?
Let me see. 10,000, 2 holdalls and picnic basket.
We could be here for some time then.
But you wouldn't happen to have a bath I could use?
No.
Oh, those are the days.
Children's programme, of course, don't forget.
Yeah, I mean, so how did it come about though? Because number 73 is quite an unusual piece. It was at the birth of TVS.
Yes.
And it also appears to be, although I think it doesn't influence the young ones, but
No, I
it
don't
seems to
think
be kind of, it's certainly the same period, and it has similar kind of.
It was John Dale who created it, and it was. The thing it has more in common with is anything to do with improvisation, because it was all improvised based on. You're saying I had to write it. It was Sandy Toksvig's show, basically.
Yeah.
And she and I had been writing partners, and when we put the script together, we put together stepping stones that people could go through, and then during the week they improvised around the stories and the jokes that we'd given them, and they put all the flesh on it. So that was really the innovation of it, was to do something with.
Well, I mean, had there been a sort of Saturday morning show prior to that which attempted to be kind of semi-fictional? I mean, I think
no, I don't think
Zocco, but that was one of the most confusing things in the world anyway.
You were into the era of Superstore and
yeah.
No,
and then I mean, in the years to come, you got sort of Parallel 9 and
yeah.
Anything involving a toy.
They're still
as
doing
a
it
presenter.
now with the Misty show on Saturday morning.
So
which
this
has just been running.
This is your responsibility now.
Well, no, we give it to John and Sandy. I think that one.
But it was
so did Sandy know John Dale quite well, or was this how did
John Dale saw Sandy in the theatre and thought she was fantastic, which she is and was.
Absolutely.
A real, completely ahead of her time, and far more mature than her years, and he decided to put her in this show that he was making at that time.
Oh, we are running desperately short of time now, I'm afraid.
Unfortunately, much as we'd like to talk about this for many hours to come, but anyway, thank you very much, Nick Symons, for joining us tonight.
It's been absolutely brilliant,
and it's been lovely to hear all these clips and to speak to you again. And right, well,
we better just get a quick plug in. Harry Hill's TV Burp again, which you're producing. When's that back?
23rd of October.
All right, and you're starting
Audience with Harry Hill, 16th of October, both on ITV1.
Okay.
And you're starting work on TV Burp when? Do you have much of a run at?
The 20th of September. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we got you just in time by the sound of it. Anyway, thanks a lot, Nick. Thanks to our engineer and, dare I say it, producer David tonight. It's been an enjoyable evening, and we're going to leave you with Peter Kay, which is Nick's contemporary choice for the evening.
Then you go back to school in September and you can't write. I can't write. What's the matter with me? I can't write. I can't write. 6 weeks of why don't you when your arm's frigged? I can't write. Cannot write. What's the matter with me? Teachers, come on now. In assembly. Come on now. Quiet everybody. Come on. Fingers on lips. You ever do that at school? You still talk. Fingers on lips. Come on. You're not on your holidays anymore. There's that one lad with a lilo and trunks and a snorkel. Like, what? What's all me? Bloody hell, I've got on the gear out here. Rub that cream in, will you? Bloody hell, blow my lilo up. On the last day of school, last day of term. I used to love last day of term. You know, you could either bring a game in. We run close for 10p and bring a game in, like a plunk. Or Tank Command, or Crossfire, or Mastermind with that Vietnamese lady on box. Remember that? Who was she? Who was she? Who was she? Or you could wear your own clothes for 10p. Do you want to wear your own clothes for 10p? I might, it's my uniform, it's not hired. This is my own uniform. I have a mufti. And teachers, you went on a school trip, you see, you go on a trip, I don't mean like an LSD thing, I mean you go on coaches or something somewhere. And you go off somewhere on a trip, and then, teachers used to turn up in the play clothes. They'd have, like, cagoules on. You know, keep laughing up there. Cagoule, or blue jeans. Are you a teacher? Really blue jeans. Really bright blue with massive turn-ups. Huge turn-up. Bright white trainers. Really trainers off market, like Gola, high-tech trainers. With flashing red lights on. Bouncing down road. Come on! You're on Coach A, you're on Coach B, so you've not paid 10p. Come on, let's go.
Dinner ladies getting on, bit of cash in hand. Well, I'll do that. Escort for the day, got 30 quid, that'll do me. Come on, get on. Janice, Barbara, we're on. My Auntie Sandra, not my real auntie though. Friend at family. They'd all pile on coach, you know, I'll get on, and there'd be some, but them girls would always pretend they were drunk because they'd had a cider lolly. Or have a shandy lolly or a cider lolly, they pretend they were drunk. I'm drunk, I'm out the end. I'm drunk, it was at back seat, where am I? Sit down.
Resonance FM 104.4.